Hello, hello, and welcome into the PHNX Suns pregame show brought to you, as always, by our friends over at the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook app. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you know every time we are live. I'm Lindsey Smith, and today I am joined by Saul Bookman. And Saul, tonight, it is the Suns and the Pacers. And if you're like, wait, I feel like we just did this. That's because we did. 8 days ago, the Suns played the Pacers over at their place, and we're victorious in that one. So a quick turnaround for these two teams.
Yeah, quick turnaround. The Pacers have been on a roll of late. They just beat the Lakers. They just beat the Warriors. Should be a fun game, I think, because you just don't know what you're going to get with this Pacers team. They're young and they've got a lot of injuries, but they just don't seem to care. So,
yeah.
And the Suns saw it. Unfortunately, they saw it with DA. And tonight we'll be without him. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, we'll see how it kind of shapes up. Just a quick little overview. So the Suns are back home after that perfect 5-game road trip that they were on. And currently the Suns are the only team in the NBA to rank in the top 6 in offensive, defensive, and net rating this season. So, as we all know, they're doing pretty well. But as you mentioned, Saul, on the Pacers side of things, they are on a 2-game win streak. The Lakers on Wednesday night, the Warriors in overtime on Thursday night. I caught the back end of that game because it was right after the Suns had played. By the time I got home, I turned it on and I was like low-key cheering for the Pacers. I mean, I guess probably not really low-key, but.
No, not low-key at all.
No.
I think all of us were, to be honest with you. I mean, listen, the Warriors are the next closest team to us. And that's starting to slip away a little bit because the Warriors have been on a little bit of they've been struggling as well. So, any loss, any separation we can get, the better, because if you start to think about the end of the season, and we're already past the halfway point, you start to think about the end of the season, it would be nice if the Suns could get maybe an extra couple days rest because they don't have to play dudes because they've already sealed up the number 1 seed with like a week to go. It would be nice. Just saying.
It would be nice. And so Blaze in the chat says the Pacers have had their unlikely win for the week. They're done winning for the week. I tend to agree with you on that one. However, this is kind of an interesting game, right? Because the Suns obviously are the superior team. They should win this game, no problem. But there are so many top names that are missing from tonight's lineup, and we'll get into details on that here in just a little bit, that you almost don't have your traditional scouting report for these guys because you have limited numbers, limited amounts of film to go back and watch and see exactly what they do. And the Suns team is completely aware of that, right? Like they know that just because they beat the Pacers 8 days ago and they're the better team, they know that the potential for this team to come out and hand them a loss if they don't show up and respect that this is another NBA team, like regardless of the standing, it's still an NBA team, so they know if they don't come and have respect for them, they could very well be handed a loss.
Listen, I mean, this is almost the same identical team that they just played 8 days ago because all those stars were also out then. They didn't have Brogdon. They didn't have Turner. They didn't have Sabonis. All those dudes were out. Tonight, it's largely the same team. But to your point, yeah, I mean, what you just saw this week proves that anybody can beat anybody on any given night in the NBA. And the Suns, they've done a pretty good job of being prepared. I know they've had some slip-ups here and there, but nothing that has been so repetitious that you have to really worry too much about it. But with this Indiana team, and listen, the Suns had a big lead on Indiana and then blew that and then had to fight. And then they ended up extending the lead with about 6 minutes left to go and put the game away for good. So they know that this team can't be slept on. You got a lot of players on the other side. Listen, players are prideful. It doesn't matter if they think that they have a shot or not. They're going to play hard. They're going to see what happens. And if in the fourth quarter they think they have a chance, you never know what's going to happen. And you got to give the Pacers credit for hanging in there and doing this despite missing 3 of their top players.
Yeah, absolutely. Monty said in his pregame presser that, we want to give them respect. And the time of going over what scouting reports we do have on Indiana. But at the end of the day, it's all about locking in and doing what this team does and continuing to focus more on their game, the age-old cliches, right? They're going to say that ahead of games like this forever, and we will repeat them forever, but you know how it goes. And then also on top of that, here's a little nugget of information for you. So while the Suns have won 2 straight road games over the Pacers, they have lost 6 straight to the Pacers in Phoenix. The last time they beat the Pacers in Phoenix was December 2014.
Wow.
So weird, right? For whatever reason, apparently the Pacers really get up when they come into Phoenix.
I mean, there's nothing else. There's nothing to do in Indiana. So anytime they can leave and go on the road, I'm sure they're happy to do it. And they probably get a little energized because of it.
But you would think Old Town is undefeated most of the time. You would think getting out of Indiana and into Phoenix and having Old Town in basically in the backyard, it would play in the Suns' favor.
I mean, have you seen these dudes? I mean, they're not the prettiest dudes in the world, so they
can
go to Old Town all they want. It ain't nothing going down in Old Town for them.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll see tonight. So let's go ahead and take a peek at the injury report so that we have a full breakdown of what's going on. So on the Suns side, same old DeAndre Ayton is still out with that right ankle sprain. On the Pacers side, so Karis LeVert is out, Malcolm Brogdon is out, Domantas Sabonis is out, Miles Turner is out, TJ Warren is out. And before the game, Coach Carlisle said that for Malcolm Brogdon, they're shutting him down for a minimum of 10 days because he's dealing with that Achilles soreness. So they made the executive decision today to just not play this probable, maybe not, we'll see kind of game and just shut him down for a solid 10 days to do a very extensive rehab program for him to hopefully get that kind of taken care of and settled so that he can be back in playing action.
You know who Malcolm Brogdon reminds me of? You know, we always say so-and-so is a Walmart version of this. I think Malcolm Brogdon is a Louis Vuitton version of Andre Miller because he's very low to the ground, not the most athletic guy, but he's stout. He's kind of thick. He can body you. He can hit you from the outside. A lot of shades of Andre Miller, just a better overall player. I think he's a better offensive scorer. And so when you're low to the ground like that and you don't, you have to really push off in lateral directions and create advantages with angles more than like super athletic guys. Right. And so that Achilles, I'm sure, is a big worry for those guys, and especially Malcolm Brogdon, because if that thing doesn't get right, then he's basically at a zero.
Right.
He ain't playing with a half good to go Achilles, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's super unfortunate anytime somebody gets injured. I mean, even if it's a benefit for your team, you still don't want to see professional athletes going through something tough like that. Elon Musk in the chat said Ayton always seems to be out. It does feel like that these days. This season has been a little bit rough for DeAndre, and I hope he catches a break soon.
But just like somebody mentioned in the chat, death, taxes, and TJ Warren missing games. Look at that. Some things never change.
Oh, poor TJ. but it's facts. That's facts.
So true.
All right. So prior to tonight's game, earlier today at Shoot Around, our very own Gerald Bourguet was able to catch up with Campaign, somebody that we have been talking a lot about recently. He's turning the corner. We're kind of starting to see the Campaign that we know and love from last season kind of make his way back to the stage here this season. So he was able to catch up with him this morning at Shoot Around and just kind of asked him, what it's been like navigating this season, adjusting to playing with JaVale versus Dario, and also being on the scouting report for opponents more. So let's see what he had to say.
It's kind of tough. At the beginning of the season, it was more tough than it is now because I'm like, man, they taking away everything I'm good at, right? And then it's just like, I guess coming in last year, I wasn't on the scout report, and now I am, so gotta find different ways to score. Like you said, I just had to shoot the pull-up sometimes. It's just figuring it out. Like inside layups, they on it, so I gotta try something else. So I just been figuring that thing out. It's tough, but having Vail definitely helps. So I just throw it up there, or I can go to the lane, shoot layup, and he got the board because they trying to block. So everybody just help each other out. The scout report thing, it's cool. It's cool, but I'm figuring it out. It's just the learning curve.
I want to say, oh, that's cool. That's a nice little nugget. But at the same time, I'm like, I think about halfway through last season, teams were like, hey, we got to account for this dude because, he was having a good year. Like, so I feel like, especially if you get to the playoffs, like, I just have this feeling like why would the Clippers or the Lakers not account for campaign? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I don't think that they didn't fully account for him. I think the focus was more so on Devin, DeAndre, Chris Paul, like the tried and true, right? Like those are the three guys that are going to stand out. Those are going to be the guys circled at the top of the page.
Sure.
Campaign's going to be like 6 down the list, right? So it's somebody you pay attention to, but you don't necessarily like hone in on as this might be an area where we could fully take advantage of when you have the guys like Devin and Chris Paul and DeAndre on your team, right? Like he gets kind of left on the back burner sometimes.
Sure, but he's still the 6th one that they account for. Like that hasn't changed at all. Like, listen, like in college, like even the 8th dude off the bench that was averaging 3 points a game, we had a scouting report on him. Like that's just what happened, right? And at the NBA level, I would be blown away if they did not have that on all these guys. So I think some of this, we talked about this earlier. We talked about how I think a lot of this is just kind of mental for campaign as opposed to physical, because he's more than able enough to do what he needs to do out on the court. I feel like you're kind of getting a glimpse of like, okay, maybe he thinks that like, okay, they're starting to find my secrets. Now, I will say this, the more and more you see a player, the more you can account for some of their small little tendencies and some of their
you learn
go-tos.
all of those things. Yeah.
So in that regard, I do agree. Like instead of taking away like, hey, force him go right, make sure he shoots fading away left or whatever. Maybe they're flagging, hey, by the way, when he crosses over 95% of the time, he's going to come back left or something like that. You start to pick up on those little small things. Maybe that's what he's talking about. And in those small little details are what affected him. But he's learning how to play above and beyond that. Good players always find a way, and campaign's going to be as valuable to this team in the playoffs as anybody else on that second unit. And so if he can find a way to get around that, which it looks like he's starting to, it's going to provide big dividends for the Suns.
Yeah, David in the chat said teams took note of campaign last year, but he wasn't fully scouted and planned against. I think that's a good way to kind of describe it. Like you knew kind of the basics of what he could do, but you didn't necessarily go really in depth. You didn't do a deep dive maybe into campaign last year. And like you said, I think you really hit the nail on the head there with you don't learn all the little intricacies of an opponent's game until you've seen them a couple times and you can really dissect what's going on there. But either way, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me from hearing from campaign this morning, which no surprise, just his attitude, his approach to everything, right? Like, could you ask for a better guy on your team in your locker room than a guy like campaign, who obviously has very clearly struggled or had, some hardship this season, but his personality, his attitude seems to be just as positive as ever. And I think that is what makes the biggest difference in being able to really turn the corner, because if it is mental, like you said, and you let that just eat at you constantly, you're never going to dig yourself out of that hole.
Yeah, guys like that are just so infectious. They have a great attitude. I'm watching like The Last Dance because I love watching that over and over again. I just love just like a scouting report, I seem to find something new with every single episode. But campaign, he's much like what they used to say about Scott Burrell. Scott Burrell was just the nicest guy, and Jordan would give him a whole bunch of shit, but he would always always be happy, like it's okay, and Cam kind of brings that demeanor off the court for this team. Like he just seems like he's always happy. In the game, you get kind of his alter ego, especially when he starts dropping them. Then he starts, he kind of mean mugs and he starts talking trash. Tough. You know what I mean? Yeah, he gets a little big. All of a sudden he's just like, he ate his spinach or something. But that's what I love about Cam. Like Cam is one of those guys that you just want to watch because he gives you energy watching him, which is just, it's awesome.
Real quick, I just want to give a shout out. I feel like I'm seeing a lot of new names in the chat right now. So if this is your first time tuning in, or just maybe your first time joining in the chat, welcome. We are so happy to have you here with us. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, let's take a peek at what our friends over at DraftKings think about tonight's game. So I'll break this one down for us, will you?
Yeah, they got the Suns by 11.5, and deservedly so. They blew out the Pacers in Indiana. I don't see how that would be any different. Although I have a sneaky suspicion something is going to be a little bit different, and I'm going to show you why here in a second.
Well, let's go right into it and take a peek at our picks.
Oh, there it is. Tori.
Oh, wait, go back, Shane. Go back.
Yeah.
Go back.
I was
Saul
so
put on the
close.
hat.
Yeah, I just
Saul
flipped
put
it
on the
around.
hat.
I was ready. I was ready to go.
Nice.
For Torrey Craig, baby. Torrey Craig's going to have a big night tonight. He's going to have at least 20 points. That's my prediction of the game.
Okay.
He's going to have 20, and he's going to try and keep the Pacers close. It's not going to really matter. I picked the Suns by 1 just because I was like, I think I'm going to go the opposite of everybody. It's opposite day. So,
honestly, Saul, I almost said Suns by 4 at first, and then I was like, I feel like that might be a little disrespectful to the Suns. Let me bump it up a little bit. Suns by 8. And then Gerald and Espo, they've got Suns by 15 and 14. And then you came in with Suns by 1, and I was like, okay, maybe I'm not as crazy as I felt when I initially thought. This might be a little bit of a closer game.
I just think that if the Suns come out strong, right, and they put the wood to the Pacers in the first half, like I'm talking up by 15, 20 at half, then I think it'll be a blowout. But if they don't, and the Pacers, they have all that confidence from the last 2 games, they're just going to keep riding it. And in the second half is going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be a battle back and forth. So, it also depends. I mean, listen, Duarte had a great night the other night. I think they had 7 guys in double figures against the Warriors. Like, a lot of dudes played above their head in that game. You don't have to play too much above your head when you're playing the Lakers because they just suck. So against the Warriors, though, you got to be fundamentally sound. We've seen them a couple times this year. We understand what they bring to the table, even without Draymond Green. So you got to give the Pacers credit for that. They're feeling themselves. They're coming in here. They're going to try and do the same things they just did against the Warriors. It's not going to work, but that's all completely up to the Suns and how much they want to dictate this outcome, especially in the first half.
Josh in the chat said, we blew out the Pacers and now we think it's going to be closer at home. Do we think the Cardinals are playing? No, I definitely think the Suns will win this one. I think what it is for me is that with all the injuries that the Pacers are going through right now, you're getting new opportunities for players who weren't getting those opportunities. And we've seen it here with the Suns in years past where it's a short window. So it's not like something that's long-term, right? So don't get me, I'm not going too crazy here, but there's a short window when all of these players get their opportunities where they seem to just kind of go off because the excitement is there, the energy that is there. Everything is like heightened by tenfold. And like I said, it's a short window, maybe 5 days or so before that kind of like tapers off, maybe even a little bit longer than that, 5-10 days, I don't know. But because of that, and then plus the big win against the Warriors, the fact, I think this is the first time this year they've had back-to-back road wins. So they're just riding a lot of really big highs right now, and it could trickle over into tonight's game. And then in addition to what the Pacers are doing, we've talked about this before, but notoriously the first game back at home after a long road trip tends to be a little bit tougher on the home team. The players will tell you that. The coaches will tell you that. Like, we don't know what it is. Nobody can seem to like put their finger on exactly why. Probably because they're back in their own homes. They have their people around them, their families, their friends. They're just happy to be home, maybe a situation. So those are the factors of why I think it might be a little bit of a closer game.
Mike B in the chat said that Torrey Craig was a very, very poor man's version of Charles Barkley. I disagree. I thought about this for a while. Torrey Craig is very much Richard Dumas reincarnated. He's almost a carbon copy. Dumas had a little bit more bounce, but I mean, Torrey Craig could get up too, and provided energy off the bench for that 93 Suns team. That's who Torrey Craig is. So you might say a Walmart version, but I feel like they're almost identical. So I didn't know what that would be. What's identical? I don't know. Was it like Dillard's and like Macy's? I don't know.
Sure.
Okay. We'll go with that.
That works. I don't know. Brendan in the chat said the difference between this team and teams past is they don't let too many of the trap games get the better of them. You are exactly right. We did see that even just from last year to this year. You've seen the Suns continue to play their game and not fall to some of these lesser than teams. They're not taking nights off, which is great to see. But if it does happen to be a close game and it comes down to 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 points, don't worry, because Saul will always say, if you got Chris Paul and Devin Booker on your team, you're going to be okay, because we got this really cool stat that hit Twitter from StatMuse. Devin Booker is shooting 62.5% in the clutch, 45.5% from three. Chris Paul is plus 64 in the clutch, the highest plus minus in the NBA, and the Suns are 15-3 in clutch games this season. So if it does happen to be a little bit of a closer game and we get clutch time Suns, we're in pretty good hands, and the likelihood of us getting the W is pretty great.
Absolutely. I listen, after this season, I'm just convinced that Chris Paul is going to leave State Farm and he's going to go to Allstate along with Devin Booker because we're always in good hands. There it is. There's your cheesy dad joke for the night, everybody.
Oh my God. That was super cheesy. But it was a good one. I'll give it to you. Good job, Saul.
Thank you.
All right. Is there anything else that you would like to talk about for tonight's game? We do have one random topic that we kind of want to discuss. I think this is a good place to do it. But before we get into that, anything else for tonight's game?
JaVale McGee's got to step up. He's got to step up big time. He has not had a good run of it of late. He's been outplayed by Bismack Biyombo in multiple games. He's got to step it up. He's got to start to assert his own dominance into solidifying himself as the number two, because if it goes too long, you're going to start to see Bismack get more minutes and maybe even shift into that starting role position when DA is out. Hopefully DA, when he comes back, he doesn't miss any more games, but you just never know. So JaVale, he's got to step up. He's got to play better. Let's hope he does.
Absolutely. All right. So our final topic that we want to get into before we let you guys all go get ready for the game is a play that happened last night. So Grayson Allen, he had what majority, I feel like, of people on Twitter are calling a very dirty play last night. There are some people who are defending him against Alex Caruso, who ended up suffering a fractured wrist from that play and that situation. So I just kind of want to get your take on this, Saul. Obviously, you do agree that it was a dirty play. Do you think it's a dirty play? This was one of the biggest arguments I saw on Twitter. Do you think it's a dirty play because of who did it, and we no longer give Grayson Allen the benefit of a doubt because of his history? Or was it actually like an intentionally dirty play? If it had been some other player, would we still be saying the same things?
So I think it was a dirty play, number one, because of the action into it, right? Not grabbing his hand necessarily. Like, you want to make a hard foul, that's cool. But 9 out of 10 times, guys will maybe foul, or if they grab them and they realize that they put them in a compromising position, they might try to hold them up or stop them from really suffering a hard injury. And then, the disrespect to not even check on him, even though he was down rolling around and he was hurt. And then on top of that, you put in the fact that it's Grayson Allen, and he's the biggest piece of crap in the NBA. Nobody likes him. And it blows me away how we got conned, people. We absolutely got conned. Not us, because we're Suns fans and we got our hearts broken in the finals. But everybody else around the country was like, well, if the Suns are going to lose, at least it was to the Bucks, who everybody likes. You got to like Giannis, and you got to like some of these guys. They're high character guys. And then they add this asshole into the fray, and you're like, fuck the Bucks. And then they troll everybody this morning on I think they were having Pride Night. And they have fucking Grayson Allen eating a donut, just smirking because of what just happened against. Oh my God!
That's my biggest issue with this whole thing. Like, I think obviously, yes, dirty play. Grayson Allen no longer gets the benefit of the doubt. I think the benefit of the doubt left him in college. Even before he got to the NBA, he no longer was able to receive the benefit of the doubt because of his history. The biggest issue that I have with this whole situation is the way that the Bucks organization handled it on social media.
Yes.
Not only did they tweet that out this morning, they left it up for a really long time, even after the Bulls tweeted at them, like, really? Yeah. But an NBC Sports affiliate in Chicago, I believe, that's Bulls Talk, tweeted out like, hey, Grayson, we just want to talk. And then a video of the kerfuffle between the Pistons and the Lakers that happened earlier this season. And the Bucks blocked them on Twitter. The Bucks blocked an NBC Sports affiliate. Yeah, they blocked them on Twitter for saying that. Yeah. And I think, listen, if you don't like what somebody says, I understand that. Mute them, call it a day. But for a professional organization to block somebody, that's a lot. That says a lot about the way that your organizations kind of run within. And it might have been a rogue social media person. Maybe it was an intern. You can blame it on whoever you want.
We know it isn't. We know it isn't.
Yeah.
Listen, even if it was the rogue intern that just posted that, within minutes, somebody would have been like, whoa, no, right?
Yeah.
Like, this. Like, you've worked around the Sun social peeps. You know how involved they are on a day-to-day basis. I was a social media person over at Bally's. Like, oh, no, hell would have had to have frozen over for a social media person that's in charge to not know about what just happened. There's no excuse for a high-level franchise coming off of a championship to let that shit run like that. That just shows, honestly, it shows a lack of class and a lack of humility. My guy is hurt. Like, I hate Alex Caruso because of his time at the Lakers, but I don't want anybody to get hurt. You know what I mean? But now, oh my God, I'm going to watch that Bulls-Bucks game, and God help me, if Grayson Allen gets in that game, he better hope he doesn't go up for a dunk or something like that, because I guarantee you, dudes would be like, oh yeah, it's time to sweep the leg.
Which is super unfortunate that, like,
not for Grayson Allen.
No, not for Grayson. No, not for Grayson Allen. It's super unfortunate that players would feel like they have to take things into their own hands. Like, I hope the league comes out. I know that they said that the league is looking into it. I think the latest update was like an hour and a half ago about the league looking into this and making a decision if any disciplinary action needs to take place. I hope they do, because at some point in time, like you said, if there are no consequences to the actions, they're going to continue. If they continue, other players are going to start wanting to shut it down in their own ways. And that's just a mess for everyone involved. And you should never let it get to that point. The NBA should never let it get to that point.
He's lucky that he didn't foul, Zach LaVine or Lonzo in that regard, as opposed to, Alex Caruso. Because if Zach LaVine would have been the one that got injured, oh man, it would have been ugly. I think there would have been a brawl or a fight, because that's just uncalled for. I think about us. It's one thing to hurt campaign, right? But you hurt Chris Paul or Devin Booker, dude, we're scrapping. Like, we're fighting, because you're trying to cost us our everything.
Yeah.
And that's not cool.
Well, and at the end of the day, too, not only are you like messing with somebody's from a fan perspective, right? You're messing with our team. But then from an athlete perspective, you are messing with their money, their livelihood. And that is a major no-no. Like, you go and you do a dirty play like that, you injure somebody, you end their career. That's millions of dollars that you just took out of somebody's pocket.
Exactly.
And that is not cool.
When do we play the Bucks? Oh, we're going to have a troll job for their ass when they come here. I can guarantee you that.
I think that's my biggest thing is I'm mad at Grayson Allen, but at the same time, like, it's expected. I'm more mad at the way that the Bucks organization handled that whole situation, because I have friends who work for the Bucks and they are phenomenal people. And what their organization did not put their people who work for them in the best light. Yeah. So I think that they need to issue some form of an apology. They need to unblock the people that they blocked. So says Jay, says he's been DMing them all day and he hasn't answered him. So they need to answer So says Jay in their DMs and apologize to them too.
Some fans will rush to the court if something like that happened.
I mean, I wouldn't even be mad, to be honest with you. I wouldn't even be mad at it. Please don't do it. That's not me encouraging you to do it.
Don't do that.
Don't do it. But just know I won't be mad at you for doing it. I'll say that you shouldn't have done it, but I won't be angry. All right, Saul, we are 1 minute away from the action getting started. So we're going to let the people go watch tonight's game. As always, thank you so much for joining us on the pregame show. Don't forget,
thank you to all the newbies.
Thank you. It's been so much fun seeing so many new faces
join us in the post game. It's going to be fun.
Definitely come hang out with us after the game. Right back here, same place. If you got the link on Twitter, we'll tweet it out there again. I'm at Lindsey Smith AZ. Saul is at Saul_Bookman, and the show is at PHNX_Suns. Until the end of the game, enjoy, and we'll see you guys soon.